Welcome to my podcast, Scientists Free from Religion. On this podcast, we are going to cover all the topic that's possible in which you have a connection between science and religion. Sadly, scientists in general, they try to avoid this boundary between science and religion. Most scientists, the majority of them, they decide just to stay away. But I think that has a consequence. Today, we are going to explore one of these consequences. One of these consequences that science can be used as a tool. So my point here is that we are going to discuss today that when we ignore that there is a tension, a real tension between science and religion, and that science can be used by apologetics, that becomes very dangerous. For example, I was watching a debate between Christopher Hitchens, which is dead. I hope he's well wherever he is, or whatever he is not, because we atheists, we do not believe in life after death. And Christopher Hitchens was talking to I think was I do not remember the name, the proper name. It's not a priest. It was a bishop, I think. From Nigeria, and this religion leader from the Catholic Church, he was talking about some research about HIV, that the use of condom is not scientifically proven. So he actually cited a couple of research. I do not know where he took this research from. I do not know. I didn't have the curiosity to check out how reliable are the scientific studies that this religion leader cited. So I cannot say it for sure. But today we are going to explore, in my opinion, a clear case of religion, Christianity influencing the discussion about science and religion. In this case, you have, in my opinion, we have a kind of instrumentalization of the scientific method to defend a scientific standpoint. I'm not sure. I cannot say. I didn't do this research whether the author, they are Christians, but it's a little bit bizarre, in my opinion, that this study was done in the United States. In the United States, there's a big tension between science and religion. Christianity inside the evangelical group, they tend to be very toxic against religion. So the apologetics, they use very general argumentation, but there is nothing that stops them to use as well science, to make scientific work. The industry of tobacco, the industry of video games, the industry of games and so on, they have been doing that for quite a while. The industry of tobacco, for example, was very famous to fund scientific study that showed the benefit of smoking. For example, one study that is very famous connected smoking to Alzheimer. So if you smoke more, supposedly you have less chance of Alzheimer. But let's suppose that is true. I don't know. Suppose that is true. If that's true, you cannot ignore all the side effects of smoking. So whatever. Just one moment. I will just activate here. So whatever benefit, whatever gain that you may eventually have by smoking, then you may eventually have not Alzheimer, which I don't know if it's true. You have as well to consider side effect. That's the case of religion. That's the case of Christianity. Even if you prove by scientific methods, such as the one that we are going to discuss today, that going to church, that Christianity, that going to a church service has a benefit, I don't think that's worth it. I think that you can get the same benefit, the same set of gain using secular service, like a place that people can go, the young people that can have a place to learn and so on. So I don't think that church service is needed, because you cannot ignore the side effect. The same way of the people that are trying to connect smoking with less probability of Alzheimer you cannot ignore that smoking is not just about Alzheimer. Even if you find, but suppose that you find that smoking and Alzheimer has a connection. So the correct thing to do is to study all the substance on the cigar. Then you find the precise one that has effect on Alzheimer. Then you go there and eliminate all the other one. So if they prove that smoking has effect on Alzheimer, you should as well find the precise substance. Generally, which is the case of marijuana, marijuana has a huge amount of benefit. Some people like to study it and learn which substance, which part of the marijuana that is important. For example, cancer. For cancer pain, like people that suffer a lot of terminal cancer, some of them can smoke marijuana, but there is some study trying to find which substance is responsible for that. There's a case as well, marijuana versus hunger, that appetite control, which has to do with my PhD. So they're trying to find which precisely substance that is inside marijuana that is connected to hunger, to appetite control. So my point here is that even if you prove that going to church service, to religion, Christianity has a benefit on the young people, that's not just, you should find precisely what the cause. I would guess, my guess that is when people has a place to stay, a place of community, a place of support, for them to have something nice to do. It's not just from religion. Religion does not have the monopoly on that. Religion is not the only that hold this kind of benefit that the society. I think it's not coincidence. At least in Brazil, I think somehow maybe all over the world you have the same correlation that the church in Brazil is very strong when the state is weak. The weaker the state, the stronger the church. The stronger the church, the weaker the state. So the state is the one that is the group that's supposed to be giving people the opportunity to have something to do, to have a future, to plan your future. It's not about religion. It's not about church. Church is just, you cannot ignore, like in the case of cigar, of smoking. Even if smoke has a benefit on Alzheimer, you cannot ignore all the side effects of smoking, like your lung cancer, and all the bad thing that come from smoking, bad habit, even obesity. I was seeing a study that there is a correlation between smoking and diabetes. So if you smoke, you have a higher chance of having diabetes. So you cannot ignore that. So in the same way, if you go to church, it's not like neutral. You have especially the Christian church, they will have a kind of philosophy which may be, today it could be a little bit more gentle, could be a little bit more subtle, but they still have an idea that the homosexuality, LGBTQ+, they are some kind of evil people, they're kind of bad people. They may not say it directly. Some church may even accept, but they hold the big idea. The case of abortion, for example, the case of marriage, as you are going to see, they focused on the benefit on marijuana and sex initiation. So sex initiation in marijuana is clearly in a Christian agenda. So let's go there. So I would like as well to make a short comment about, I have been receiving a huge amount of comment about my usage of AI. I'm using AI. Some people are trying to say to me on social media that you cannot trust AI, but human has been talking bullshit for quite a while. I don't think that the AI is to blame. This tool that I'm using to create this podcast here is myself, a human talking. I can even mark for you, I'm not a bot. But what I'm trying to say is that human has been doing bullshit for quite a while, even in podcasts. So this tool I'm using is very good. So for you to understand how it works, I have to provide a set of documents. In this case, I have provided 2 documents. I have provided paper that we're going to discuss, the paper, the whole paper. I have downloaded the paper on the journal, on the page of the journal, and I have as well provided my own criticism, which I have already written. I have as well written a second criticism, which was to update. So after the AI created from me a podcast, I have two options. I can either post the podcast as it is, or I can make my own discussion. Today we are going to make a discussion, but people criticize me because I was posting just the AI conversation. But I before I post, or even after I post, I like to listen to what the AI said. So the AI is precise with my work. So if you think that's BS, it's bullshit. It's my bullshit. It's not the bullshit of the artificial intelligence. I think that it has to escape scapegoating. So, but I'm going to leave that for another discussion. What I want to say is that the fact that I'm using AI, artificial intelligence, to create a podcast, to create an episode of my podcast, has nothing to do with the quality of the work. So, I think it's a very bad idea to try to blame artificial intelligence for what human does very well, which is say bullshit. Human is not immune to say to loud of crap and so on. So I don't think that AI should be blamed for any possible problem. I am providing the artificial intelligence a set of papers, which is a human paper. My criticism, which is a human criticism, the AI make a very good work to summarize and create a podcast based on the content. So any BS that you see on this podcast is my BS. It's not the BS of the artificial intelligence. So I think I should leave it clear. I'm using artificial intelligence. I'm not hiding that. I think it's a very good work that this AI is doing. If you provide a very good paper like garbage in, garbage out, I completely agree that garbage in, garbage out. I hope that my work is not garbage in. So let's see. Let's go there and talk to AI and make the discussion.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hi there.
So today we're diving into a really interesting pair of sources you've shared. First up, there's this academic paper from the American... Oh, our listeners got something to share. Let's hear it.
Hey there, everyone. So I should introduce myself. I'm the author of the critique. I'm not the author of the paper. I'm the author of the critique, and I'm just letting you know that I'm here. I'm going to join the discussion. I have already introduced you guys. I have already done a previous introduction of my podcast, and now I just want to let you know that I'm here.
Well, hello there. It's fantastic to have you join us directly.
Absolutely thrilled you're here with us, especially as the author of the critique we're about to dive into.
It adds a whole new dimension to our conversation. We were just setting the stage with the study itself.
Yeah, so glad you jumped in now. Your perspective is exactly what we were hoping to explore.
So knowing you're here, perhaps we can weave your insights into our discussion as we go through the study's findings.
Definitely. We were just about to get into what the researchers actually found.
So for you and everyone listening, the study looked at how often teenagers attended religious services.
And also how frequently they engaged in prayer or meditation.
Then they tracked these same young people into their young adulthood.
And looked at a really back to our listener. What's up?
Since I'm here join the conversation, I'm going to stop from time to time. So I have published a second blog post on Scientists Free from Religion, which is a blog on Medium, in which I have updated, because you guys sent me the first version of this podcast. You guys did a very nice work. I listened to the podcast. I listened to you guys talking. Then I have notes that I was not clear in some points. So the paper you guys used is a little bit different from the one. I have just published a new one and update. I think I should be very clear. They do not say meditation in the sense of Buddhism. So when they use the word meditation, they do not specify in the paper what they mean by meditation. So it seems that it's a self-declaration meditation. They ask people whether they would pray and meditate. So I think the probability is very low, not to say zero, that someone is going to pray and meditate in the sense of Buddhism. In the sense of Buddhism, the benefit...
Oh, that's incredibly helpful feedback. Thank you so much for letting us know about the updated blog post.
Yes, and that's a really crucial point you bring up about the term meditation in the study.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. You're saying the study didn't specify the type or context of meditation.
Exactly. The participants self-reported how often they prayed or meditated.
So it could encompass a wide range of practices, not necessarily secular mindfulness or Buddhism. Oh yeah, let's hear it.
I think I should be very clear here. When you talk about meditation, the sense of Buddhism and so on, there is a huge literature and very rich proof that meditation has benefit. Such as if you meditate, for example, 5 hours a day, that could be a very interesting and in the effect, such as Daniel.
That's a really important clarification. When you think of meditation, you're focusing on a specific tradition and practice.
And as you mentioned, the potential for really in-depth benefits with dedicated practice.
Which is quite different from the general way the study uses the term prayer or meditation.
Right. Their broad definition likely captured a lot of different activities.
So when they highlight those associations, it's important to remember that lack of specificity.
It makes it hard to pinpoint exactly what kind of meditation might be linked to these outcomes.
Your point about the Buddha. Oh yeah,
I think it's a very important to stress on this part, because when you talk about meditation.
Absolutely, I understand. It's crucial to emphasize that the study's understanding of meditation is very broad.
Yes, and as it pointed out, your understanding of meditation, especially within the context of Buddhism, involves specific practices and potential for deep engagement.
Which could lead to different outcomes than, say, a brief moment of personal...
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Maybe I think I should be very clear here. For those for people that are interested in meditation on the context of atheism, because this podcast, Scientists Free from Religion, is about atheism. There is this book of Sam Harris called Wake Up. I think Waking Up or Wake Up. I think I forgot the name of the book. But he talks about Buddhism inside a secular society. Like he talks about spirituality without religion. So when you talk about meditation, you have Daniel Goleman, you have a huge literature showing that meditation in the sense of Buddhism has a benefit. But you should also remember that meditation has nothing to do with having superpower. So meditation is not about, when you say about to pray, people pray because they believe they can change the world, they can help somebody else. Someone is sick, so they pray for the people to improve. Meditation is not about that. Meditation is about knowledge about yourself. It's improving yourself, improving your mind. In the case of meditation, go on.
That's a really helpful clarification for everyone listening, especially those interested in meditation from a secular perspective.
You're highlighting a distinction between prayer, often directed outward with intention, and meditation as a path of self-inquiry and personal growth.
And you brought up Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, which explores meditation within a secular philosophical framework.
It's a popular resource for people interested in mindfulness and meditative practices without religious dogma.
And you're right to emphasize that the benefits of meditation, as understood in these contexts, are about inner transformation, not external influence.
That's an important contrast to the concept of prayer that the study also examined.
It definitely adds another layer to interpreting those positive links they found for that broad category of prayer or meditation.
What about the health behaviors in relation to prayer or meditation as the study defined it?
They reported lower chances of drug use and early sexual initiation.
And a lower likelihood of STIs, along with...
Oh yeah, go on.
I think that's a point that should be very clear. I think that's one point that you should as well pay attention. The question is why they're talking about sexual initiation and use of drugs, specifically marijuana. I think, which is I explore a lot on the blog post, it has to do with Christianity. Both sexual initiation and the marijuana, they are both a Christian agenda, which means that most likely this study was influenced by religion context. The study was done in the United States, which means that there is a huge context there. I didn't check the author if they are Christian. I didn't check the state if there's a very Christian state. But for sure, I think there is a very strong factor here.
That's a really thought-provoking point you're raising about the specific focus on sexual initiation and marijuana use.
Okay, let's unpack this. You're suggesting that this emphasis might reflect a particular religious viewpoint.
And that this could have influenced what the researchers chose to highlight.
It's interesting you bring up the historical context of when the study was conducted.
Societal views and religious influences can certainly shape research priorities.
The critique does mention how marijuana is sometimes singled out in discussions around religion and risky behaviors.
and it questions whether this focus is always driven purely by the data itself.
It makes you wonder if other substances or behaviors were given less attention in the study's analysis.
The critique you wrote does specifically point out alcohol and tobacco as examples.
Right, substances with significant health impacts that might warrant similar attention.
So considering your... go for it.
I think there's a point here that I should be very clear. The tactic, the strategy of funding research to defend their position is not new. The industry of tobacco, the industry of video games, the industry of bets and so on, they have been doing it for quite a while. There is a study, for example, trying to correlate smoking with Alzheimer's. So if you smoke, you have less chance of Alzheimer's. But you know as well that smoking increases your chance of diabetes. So you cannot consider just a positive effect of something, ignore the side effect. In the case of religion, there is intolerance, there is this anger toward the homosexuality. So religion is not a neutral, it's not a kind of stuff that you just teach someone, that's all. There is a consequence, such as such as segmentation, such as hate, anger, prejudice against a certain group of people. So Christianity, religion, prayer is not random.
That's a really powerful point about the potential for research to be influenced by underlying agendas.
Okay, let's unpack this further. You're highlighting a history of industries funding research to downplay negative impact.
And you're suggesting that a similar dynamic could be at play when it comes to research on religion.
It's a crucial reminder that research isn't always neutral and can be shaped by various interests.
And you bring up a really important point about not ignoring potential negative consequences.
You're saying that focusing only on positive correlations with religion might overlook negative social outcomes,
such as intolerance or prejudice towards certain groups.
That's a vital consideration when looking at the overall...
And here, for example, if you talk to someone that smoke, you know that they are going to say that the studies are fake, the studies are not true. They are going to cite, for example, I have a person that smoked and drank and they live 100 years old. So if you talk to someone that smoke, they are always going to find a reason to prove that the study is wrong. I don't think that religion is different. I think this study, I think that when you talk about religion, they are trying to prove that religion has a benefit, but they are ignoring all the side effects, such as intolerance, anger, hate towards certain groups, such as LGBTQ+. So we cannot ignore this side effect and say that here go the study that show that going to church service is good for you. But I think the study didn't give enough attention to the side effect, to the consequence. Go on.
That's a really incisive observation about the tendency to highlight favorable evidence.
Okay, let's unpack that. You're saying people often cherry-pick examples that support their pre-existing beliefs.
Exactly. You mentioned how someone might point to an elderly person with unhealthy habits as proof that those habits aren't harmful.
And you see a parallel in discussions about religion,
where potential benefits might be emphasized while negative side effects are overlooked.
That idea of not giving enough attention to the potential downsides is key.
Especially the social consequences like intolerance and prejudice, as you mentioned.
It brings up the crucial point that any analysis of religion's impact needs to be comprehensive,
considering both potential positive and negatives.
It sounds like you feel the study might be leaning too heavily on potential benefits,
without fully addressing these important side effects you've highlighted.
Which is a really important point. Oh, go for it.
I think it's important to leave it clear. I'm not sure that the author, they have a religious agenda. I'm not saying that they did it by purpose. It could be just natural. It could be just like the environment, the structural environment. I'm not saying that they had an agenda. It seems that they have used good science. It seems that they have used statistics. They have been. I think the only flaw of the research that is very clear is that they do not have a group control that's good. For example, if you say someone that goes to church versus someone that does not go to church, it's a very broad. It's a very broad group. Someone that does not go to church could still be Christian, could be Buddhism, could be agnostic, could be atheist. So when you try to compare someone that goes to church, go on.
That's a really nuanced point you're making about potential bias.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of a possibly unintentional religious agenda.
You're suggesting it might not be a conscious effort, but more of a structural influence.
Like the researcher's background or the prevailing cultural norms.
And you appreciate that they used sound methodology like statistics and a good sample size.
But that the lack of a well-defined control group is a significant flaw.
That broad comparison between those who attend and those who don't. Yep, go on.
It's not just about any well-defined group control. It's also about the let's say the target, the goal. Why they are using as a benefit, as a goal, smoking marijuana, using marijuana drugs, and using the sex initiation of the teenager. I think the sex initiation, the marijuana, is a very big red flag that it's a kind of Christian. They could compare anything. They could compare against, for example, if they go to the university, they could compare if they, for example, if they help, they even compare if they help people. It seems I remember well, but they could compare if anything. They could use anything as a kind of target, as a kind of goal. But they use a sexual initiation and the use of marijuana. That's a Christian agenda.
That's a really interesting angle on the specific outcomes they chose to focus on.
You're suggesting that the selection of marijuana use and sexual initiation as key indicators
Might point towards a particular set of values or concerns.
It raises the question of why these behaviors were prioritized over others.
Like academic achievement or acts of community service, as you mentioned.
The critique you author definitely touches on this idea of a potentially skewed focus.
Highlighting alcohol and tobacco as other significant health behaviors.
So, considering your point, the choice of these specific targets is definitely something to think about.
And whether other forms of community involvement were considered as comparators.
Now, the study did try to see if religious attendance or private prayer had stronger links.
Keeping in mind our earlier discussion about the broad definition of prayer.
There were nuances in the strength of those connections, depending on the outcome.
And it's true, for many, these practices are linked to their religious beliefs.
Interestingly, they also found a somewhat unexpected link with physical health reports.
Where more frequent prayer or meditation seem to correlate with more reported physical issues.
And as we've discussed, the ambiguity. Hey, yeah, what's up?
Can you stress a little bit this kind of health issue between prayer and health issue? Because that's a very well studied in meditation. In meditation, for example, there are several studies showing that if you meditate, for example, 5 minutes a day, that could be a benefit in your brain. It could have effect on your health. So please give a little bit more of focus on this part of the health issue that you mentioned.
Absolutely. That's a really important area to delve into a bit more.
Yes, especially given what we know about meditation from other research.
The study did touch on some psychological well-being outcomes related to prayer or meditation.
Things like greater positive affect, emotional processing, and expression.
And as you mentioned, there's a lot of research suggesting even short periods of meditation
Can have tangible benefits for mental clarity and even physical health.
It makes that finding of more reported physical health problems with frequent prayer or meditation
all the more intriguing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's important to stress again. I have already done that before, but I stress again. When you talk about meditation on the paper, they are not talking about meditation in the sense of Buddhism. They do not mention that. It's a self-declaration. So when people say that I meditate, it could be anything. It could be, for example, a walk. I don't think that in the paper they're clear enough to say what they mean by meditation. So the term meditation, even inside Buddhism, for example, the term, there are several types of meditation. There's meditation, Vipassana meditation, there's meditation by image, there is the meditation of the chocolate, which is a very fun meditation, there's meditation using a chair. I think the term meditation is very, very broad. I think I think sometimes it's even impossible to know what they mean by meditation on the paper.
You're absolutely right to emphasize that again.
The study's use of prayer or meditation is incredibly broad.
And as you clearly laid out, the term meditation itself has so many different meanings and practices.
From formal Buddhist techniques to more informal moments of reflection.
Even within a single tradition like Buddhism, there isn't just one type of meditation.
So when the study links this very general, self-reported prayer or meditation to certain outcomes,
it's hard to know exactly what practices they're actually capturing.
It really limits our ability to draw specific conclusions about the effects of meditation as you understand it.
And as you pointed out, someone might even consider focused work to be a form of meditation.
That lack of a clear definition is a significant limitation of this aspect of the study.
It highlights the complexity of studying these connections.
And why it's crucial to look at various potential explanations.
Now, the researchers did use those e-values to assess the robustness of some connections.
Suggesting that links to character strengths and some behaviors were...
Please explain a little bit more about e-value. Give a little bit explanation about what do we mean by e-value.
Okay, let's unpack this term e-value.
It's something the researchers used in their sensitivity analyses.
Basically, it's a way to try and see how strong an unmeasured factor
Would need to be to potentially explain away the observed links.
Think of it like this. Say the study found a link between religious attendance and volunteering.
An e-value tells us how strongly some other thing.
That they didn't measure, like maybe a general tendency to join groups
Duck would have to be related to both religious attendance and volunteering.
to make that initial link disappear,
A higher e-value suggests the observed link is more robust.
meaning it would take a pretty strong unmeasured factor to explain it.
The study mentions, for instance, that the link between service attendance and volunteering.
Had an e-value of 1.90.
This suggests that an unmeasured confounder would need to have a risk ratio of 1.90.
With both service attendance and volunteering to fully explain their connection.
It's a statistical way of saying, this link seems pretty solid.
However, the researchers were also transparent about the limitations of their research.
Which is a really important aspect of any scientific study.
They noted their basic... Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
I think we should explain to people how we do science. I have a PhD, so I spent a considerable amount of my time doing research. So I should explain how research works. Research is not about one paper. For example, this paper found X. So you can compare to other papers to find Z, for example. So let me do that here as one example. There is another paper as well, which is a very famous paper, which we can cover on the future, on another episode. They studied more than 1,000 children, which a lot of children. They were raised on secular homes, or the other were raised in Christian and the Islam home. They found that the one that were raised on a secular house, they want to help people more, and they were less punitive. So you have this study pointing out if this e-value in one direction, and you have this other study with more than 100 children pointing in other direction. Go on.
That's a really valuable point about the broader scientific process.
Absolutely. And thanks for offering that insight from your own experience.
As you said, one study is just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
It's about building a body of evidence through different studies.
And comparing findings across various research projects.
That example you shared about children raised in secular homes is fascinating.
It really highlights how different upbringings might correlate with different values.
And it underscores the complexity of this whole area study.
It's a perfect illustration of why we need to look at multiple studies.
To get a more complete picture and avoid drawing conclusions from just one paper.
Which brings us to your blog post's title, How Come You Are Picking on Me?
It encourages us to consider these findings in a wider context.
The central point of your critique, as we understand it, is about potential bias.
Subtle ways in which underlying views can influence research.
And your specific question about the emphasis on marijuana is so important.
Asking if that focus is purely based on the data itself.
Or if it might also reflect specific moral or cultural perspectives.
Potentially prioritizing certain behaviors in the analysis.
You rightly highlighted the significant health impacts of alcohol and tobacco.
Substances widely used, but not as central in this study.
Linking this to the changing social and legal views on marijuana.
It offers a valuable... Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Yes, that's a very important part. Why they focused on marijuana? They didn't focus on the alcohol, for example. I think there are several answers. One answer is that the alcohol industry is very strong. And the marijuana is already how could I say? Is already punished. So easier. Christianity has this kind of tendency. They tend to punish the weaker one. So in the case of marijuana, it's already illegal. It's already a war. The war against drugs, it's a religion war. It was created by Christian groups. So it's easier to attack marijuana And just to forget the other, go on.
That's a really compelling explanation for the focus on marijuana.
You're suggesting that the existing legal and cultural landscape
Makes marijuana an easier target compared to the well-established alcohol industry.
and that historical religious stances on certain substances
Might play a role in which behaviors get more scrutiny.
it brings up the idea of power dynamics influencing research focus.
And how certain narratives can become more dominant,
Your point about a tendency to punish the weaker one is quite striking.
highlighting how existing societal biases might shape research agendas.
Now, the study did compare those who attended services with those who didn't.
But as you've pointed out, the never attended group is broad.
You wondered if comparing to secular community groups,
That might reveal if the benefits are tied to community support generally.
rather than specifically to religious involvement,
That idea of a community effect is definitely something to consider.
it makes you think about the role of belonging for young people.
Your critique rightly suggests future studies could explore this.
By looking at different forms of community engagement,
And by further understanding the diverse, never attended group.
the reasons behind their lack of religious participation are key.
And while the study looked at some positive links, you also raised potential harms,
Even within supportive religious settings, negative outcomes could occur,
like beliefs that might unfortunately lead to prejudice.
which could negatively impact overall well-being.
It reminds us that community influence can be complex.
So, as the author of this important critique, what's your main takeaway?
Ultimately, it's about urging researchers to be really aware of their own biases,
To make sure the scientific process is truly driven by the evidence.
advocating for a comprehensive and balanced approach in research.
So, looking at both this study and your insightful critique,
We see a piece of research and a critical perspective pushing for deeper thought.
it really shows how our understanding grows through careful examination.
Thank you again for joining us and sharing your valuable insights.
Your direct participation has... Oh, yeah,
I would like as well to thank everyone to be here. Thank you too for participating on the discussion. Thank everyone for that. And hope in the future I may bring also the study of more than 1,000 children, which was raised on a secular house, on a secular home, versus children that were raised in a religion environment. So I think the study as well is very important to consider. So this one is saying that you should send your children to church service, but the other one is saying that you shouldn't. So I think that's important to compare. That's how you do research. You compare different results. So a good you have this there's one thing called a review paper. Review paper is a paper that review all the results. A review paper try to put together this piece. So it's a puzzle. You should not guide yourself just using just one paper that say that go send your children to church and that will be okay. So that's all. Thank you all for the attention.
It sounds like you're emphasizing the importance of looking at multiple studies.
Absolutely. That point about not relying on just one paper is so crucial,
You mentioned another study looking at children raised in secular versus religious homes.
which offers a different perspective on some of these questions.
And you're right, that's exactly how research progresses.
By comparing and contrasting findings from various sources,
You also brought up the idea of review papers,
which are so valuable for synthesizing all the existing research.
helping to build a more complete understanding.
It really underscores that this is a complex area with many factors at play.
Your point about not taking just one study as definitive guidance is so well taken.
It encourages us to think broadly about adolescent well-being.
And the most effective ways to study these significant influences.
This has been a truly deep and engaging exploration, made so much better by you.
Indeed. It's a great example of how diverse perspectives lead to greater understanding.
Thanks for diving into this fascinating topic with us today.
We appreciate you being part of this deep dive. Until our next discussion,